Here's why I have you here. What's up, guys? It is your girl Sarah from Sarah Styles here with my weekly accountability live YouTube. I am on location, so please excuse the poor lighting and the very dated, pictures behind me. It's my kids' spring break, but I did not want to miss this live. I had Kristinia planned out. We've been trying to get together for months, and this is the day we picked, so I did not want to miss it. Kristinia is, she's been on before. We have done like economic and financial trends, and reseller trends and all of that. So today we are going to be give a brief overview of kind of what's happening in the reseller secondhand climate. And then we're really going to get into a lot of Poshmark stuff. They had their IPO, if you're not familiar with, they went public a few months ago, and they recently have had their earnings call. And with Kristinia being a financial executive, she knows how to read these and interpret them, and kind of give us a little bit of information on them as well. So I'm super excited to have Kristinia here. We have a ton of content. Kristinia sent me over 6 pages of notes. So I am going to let you introduce yourself really quickly, Kristinia, and then I want to jump right into it, and kind of start at a high level what's happening with the reseller climate on a high level, and then we'll kind of get into some of the micro Poshmark stuff.
Yeah. So, like I said, Kristinia, my closet name and Instagram is @kittenbstyle. I've been on Poshmark and reselling since 2015. Really do a lot of research on another one of my side hustles, I guess you could say, is to be a consultant. And I do actually investor calls on a variety of topics. I work in healthcare, so I may comment on healthcare topics, but I also have done investor calls on resale because it is such a hot topic right now in the investor world. So I just wanted to say that, all the research that I do and my opinions, they are my own. And, I love sharing with the reseller community so that they can help grow their businesses. But, my content really should not be used without my permission or Sarah's permission as the publisher of the YouTube.
Yes, so. Right. And Kristina's social media is down below as well. So if you like this video and you want to reach out to her, or maybe use some of the information that she's shared, her information is down below and you can reach out to her as well. So let's get into it. High level, what's happening? I mean, in the past couple times that you've come on, it's really looking hopeful for resellers. Secondhand is coming back. A lot of the luxury brands are getting into it. ThredUp has really good projections. So kind of where are we sitting on the high level of things?
Yeah, so ThredUp IPO'd this week as well. Their share price was at $14. They had a good showing in their IPO. They went up 30% on the first day, up to $18.25. They've got a $1.3 billion valuation. People say, okay, well, it's a lot less than Poshmark, etc. But you have to understand ThredUp is a niche market in the resale. They're mostly focused on clothing, although they did say they want to expand to new categories as well as international as part of the IPO. But they do hold the inventory, and so that does affect it in some ways because they're obviously bound by some things there. Also, I thought interestingly, Kering, which is the owner of Gucci, Balenciaga, Alexander McQueen, they purchased a 5% stake in Vestiaire Collective, which is a resale site. Vestiere's had over 100% growth in the last year, and they're valued at over $1 billion. And this was really interesting because as of now, especially Chanel and Hermes, they have really shunned resale. They really want control of their merchandise. And so for Gucci and Balenciaga to become a part of a resale application was quite interesting. Their comments were that they're recruiting the consumers of tomorrow because younger buyers tend to buy secondhand, and then their hope is it becomes what they call a flywheel as opposed to a circular economy. That those young buyers will eventually, as their incomes grow, purchase new.
That's interesting too, because like you said, it's been kind of shunned upon. And I feel like we've talked about other companies doing this in the past as well. A lot of these companies that are not filing for bankruptcy currently this past year are catching on and saying this is where, Walmart, right? Like on the other end of it, Walmart is getting into it, Target's done stuff, JCPenney, and so this is interesting for resellers as well, because now our competition is going to be some of the
retail
doing it for themselves, right? So that's something to keep an eye out. Not saying that you guys cannot resell, but this is why I have Kristinia on, because you have to know what's going on in the economy to be able to make this work.
Yeah.
So sorry, continue.
Well, I mean, resale has got huge projections. Just a couple of the numbers, and I think we've covered these before. But secondhand, the overall secondhand and thrift market is expected to reach 60 billion by 2025, which is up from 28 billion in 2019. And then a subset of that, which is resale, which is what they consider curated by a seller, is expected to grow from 7 billion in 2019 to 36 billion in 2024. Wow. So they're huge numbers, right? So that's really why these retailers are trying to get into this circular economy. So back to the flywheel example is that when the person comes into the store, so they've purchased secondhand, and then they come into the store to purchase new, they again turn in that bag that they purchased secondhand. It's authenticated, it's maybe reconditioned, and then it's put back out into the secondary market by a Gucci or a Balenciaga. And so they continue to recycle these goods, and with the expectation that resale is eventually going to reduce the amount of products produced because people are constantly turning them over. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite caught up to that yet. Resale is in some ways spurning more consumption because a lot of people are purchasing with the thought, oh, I'll just resell it eventually. And so there's a little bit of controversy there as to whether the reasons that a lot of the younger generation is getting into resale with the sustainability and the circular economy, if it's really coming true yet. So time will tell, but there is definitely a great interest in it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And something to keep an eye on as well as resellers. These numbers are huge, so I think there's definitely enough room for everyone. But our competition is getting, these big retailers, they know, like if someone's going to resell back a Gucci, they're going to do it to Gucci, not they're not going to donate it to a thrift store.
So they'll get credits towards the new. So I guess it's, where are you going to get the most bang for your buck with that resale? And speaking of competition, so I didn't actually get to read this article because there was a paywall, but the headline I might have to buy. I think it was Women's Wear Daily. I may have to subscribe. Goodwill is looking to become resale's next billion-dollar site, seeing 20 million visitors each week on its e-commerce site, and plans a redesign to compete with Poshmark and ThredUp.
Yeah. I would absolutely see that. Our Goodwills, I quit shopping at the actual Goodwill store because they pulled all of their good stuff and send it to their website. And the bins, I'm finding out now, are doing the same thing. They're having people before they used to just put everything in a bin and you could still find good stuff. And I'm hearing through the grapevine that they are having people go in the back and pull all the good stuff to put on their website. But I'm wondering if people who are donating are going to start to catch on to this and maybe not donate because but also if it goes to a good cause and they believe, I don't know, that it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot of grumblings in some of the podcasts and other things that I listen to in the thrift world, just vintage people who have always been lifelong lovers of thrift, that it's changed a lot and that resale has changed the thrift model pretty significantly from a merchandise perspective. And so I think you're going to see, it's just going to get harder and harder to get inventory. So things to think about, moving forward.
Yeah. So if there's not anything else that you want to touch on here, because we have a lot of content, I want to really dig into Poshmark. So I think if there was something else that you wanted to touch on Okay, so let's get into Poshmark. Just briefly, I want you to just give a high level, what is an IPO? For people that are maybe new to, that kind of world, what does it mean? Why would Poshmark do it? Just a quick.
Yeah. So essentially, an initial public offering. It's an offering of stock, and really, it's a fundraising activity. So the reason that companies go public is because they want to raise funds. They want to do different things. When you raise funds as a public company, though, and you have the shares, then there's different regulatory things that you have to meet. You have to do different forecasting. It's kind of a mixed bag. So a lot of companies don't like to do it. If you think about Poshmark, they've been around since 2011. They're 10 years old. They've had a lot of series fundraising, which is going out and getting private funds, investments. And maybe they've just kind of reached their limit and they wanted to do different things. And so the IPO was the next logical step in being able to raise the capital that they needed to do what they want to do going forward.
And one of the kind of exciting, because I'm a dork, one of the exciting parts of the IPO, I think from our side, is once you are filing for an IPO, you have to then disclose a lot of things that we didn't know before, right? When you're a private company, you don't have to. Once you go public, you have to fill out your financials and start doing earnings calls, which I think is really interesting because then we're actually getting an insight into what is actually happening. And Kristinia is going to get into it. We're going to go over the IPO, a little bit of things that, kind of she thought was interesting. Things that she thought were interesting, as well as they had their first earnings call. Was it a couple weeks ago now?
Yeah.
And we have never seen this side of Poshmark before.
Right.
I have the door open and it's getting cold, but you can start talking. I'm gonna close the door. So let's start kind of with the IPO. If there's anything with that you wanted to touch on that you thought was kind of interesting or things that kind of sparked your interest.
Yeah. So I really focused on the earnings call, basically scrutinized the transcript of it. So some of the things are from the IPO, but for the most part, it's the earnings call. I felt we got a lot of good detail there that maybe wasn't necessarily covered. But the stock price has been down about 31% in the past month. It's actually a little bit more. After the earnings call, it went down 22% at the opening the next day, and then ended down 19.9% at $47.63. As of this morning, I didn't check before we came on here for the close, but as of this morning, it was at $39.64. It had debuted at 42, which was the bank estimates. So, it's dropped below what its initial dollar amount was. And the real driver behind that was that their first earnings outlook was poor. So it was rather interesting that they IPO'd in January and submitted substantial financial statements. And then by March 11th, they had already downgraded their revenue projections for the first quarter. And so, interesting. But even though earnings were up, they're still forecasting Q1 to be below expectations. They had a loss of $4 million versus $14.75 million last year. And then I thought this was interesting, their take rate. So if you think about e-commerce and you think about what is a take rate? A take rate is basically their commission. So it should be, in my opinion, higher than the 20% that they currently charge, because on the lower price sales, we know the $295, anything 15 and under is actually more than 20%. But their take rate was 17.9, and they're blaming it on cancellations due to USPS delays and the weather, mostly in Texas. So I thought that was interesting. A little bit, 2.1% in cancellations.
Yeah, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like maybe during the IPO, I read or heard that they were actually making money on shipping because they charged so if the shipping was down because of that, some of their take home could have been down, right?
Yeah, yes. And that actually answered a question for me. Being a financial person, I'd always wondered about their cash flow, because if you think about it, you can list and sell and get Posh credit. and then you can repurchase something with Posh Credit. Well, cash never changes hands there. And so I had concerns about their cash flow. Learning that they're making money on, we all complain about the shipping being too high for small weighted items. Say it's only a couple ounces and it would normally be a $4 SPS charge. They're getting $7.45. So they're keeping that difference between what the postage actually would be and the $7.45. So then that makes sense. So that's how they're kind of shuffling things around to pay those postage bills, because to my knowledge, the USPS doesn't take Posh Credit.
Well, yes, right. Yeah. I saw that and it was very interesting. I mean, it made sense once I read it, but I was like, that's very interesting that's something that they're doing.
Yeah. Anyway, so she made remarks that Poshmark grows its marketplace, and we've heard this before too, by growing the overall community of users, the shift to online, social, resale, secondhand. He described most sellers as casual sellers. And then he went through their strategies. So the first strategy, he said, is innovation.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I think we'll get to this in a minute, but if you guys follow my channel, I've mentioned this numerous times. You can see that my Poshmark sales are on the decline. And I've mentioned numerous times that Poshmark has mostly casual sellers. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to make this a full-time thing, you have to be aware of the platforms that you're selling on. And Poshmark is a casual selling platform. That's why it's so easy. But you're competing with casual sellers. And you're also, and I think we'll get to this in a little bit as well, what that actually means. But not everyone's level of selling is going to be a reseller level, right? So we'll get into that in a minute. But I wanted to note on that because they have said it is a platform for casual sellers. If you look at their marketing, it's, come clean out your closet. You can make a couple extra bucks, where you look at like eBay and it's like, you're a business, right? And so I wanted to touch on that before we go down. And I know we're going to get deeper into that, but that's something that my channel, I've said in a couple of my past videos that I'm noticing that's happening with me.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll touch on this, but I think that casual seller is actually hurting some of their retention, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, agreed.
So the first strategy, he said, is innovation. He said the innovation is to drive user engagement. It's fundamental to retention of user cohorts. Remained focused on optimizing search, leveraging personalization, strengthening matching to drive conversion, extend personalized merchandising to more segments, categories. And then he mentioned the Posh stories and the addition of videos. And he said that those were to give a deeper merchandising to get more eyes on listings in and out of the application. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because Posh Stories is only on Poshmark. Yeah. So I'm not sure how that drives more eyes to the listing. And other applications have video.
Yeah, which makes sense, because I do think that, you look at TikTok, right? TikTok exploded and it's all video, right? Quick little videos. And then Instagram tried to do it, and now YouTube, so I do think videos is kind of the new wave of the future. But I also wonder if Poshmark is just trying to do new things to get people on the app more. Right? All of these things that aren't actually like I've done a couple of stories. I've never made a sale from it, so I stopped doing it. It's not actually helping me sell anything. It's just making me be on the app more often, right?
Yes. And that's one of the things that they mentioned in the IPO that I forgot, is the 27 minutes. And that was actually one of the reasons why they had the valuation that they had, is that they were perceived as social, and social depends on how much time people are spending on the app. And so that 27 minutes was really crucial to their evaluation. I saw some places they were compared to Pinterest, and I'm like, they're nothing like Pinterest. Instagram, it's like, yeah, okay. I think it kind of misled in some of what is the application. But to your point, a lot of the things on the app are really about driving that engagement and that social aspect. And is that social aspect really the best thing if you are, a professional reseller, or a reseller, whose hobby, they want to take to a certain level? Okay, so back to the strategies. The next one was international. He said that international is the largest growth opportunity. Thought that was interesting. Third strategy is category expansion. This was interesting. He admitted that category usage is mostly from existing sellers, only some new sellers, yet they gave no stats on any increase in sales per category. And the category expansion, pulled them away from their niche as, women's clothing and accessories, and really set them up for a lot more competition from eBay, Mercari, especially Facebook Marketplace. You think of all the places that you can purchase hard goods.
It seems to me as though they haven't, and maybe during this IPO they'll start to figure it out, but they can't decide what they want to be, because they say that they want their competition. They see their competition as Instagram. It's a social media. They have said their competition is not eBay, but then they keep doing some things to try and be, but then they can't fully commit to doing that.
Right.
And I think they would probably be really good if they like committed to something and went with it, right? If they only want to be casual sellers, then quit trying to introduce these things to more casual sellers that don't quite hit the mark yet, right?
Yeah, agree. So then the fourth strategy is seller services. Robust, easy to use, and effective seller services, demand generation services, demand acceleration, and then he gave the example of drop soon in order to pre-market and build demand for quicker sell-through. Said it had been well received by professional resellers, brands, and boutiques. And then he said they're in the early stage of investing in new technology and services to help sellers scale up. And in that category, he mentioned discounted shipping and the value proposition, and then the Posh Party Live.
Yeah, and I forgot this is where we were going, but I kind of just led right into that. This is where like they can't figure out, they try and do these new seller strategies, but they don't really, I've never used the drop suit. I think I tried it once and it didn't do anything for me, and it was time consuming.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see like, I don't know, some analytics. Y'all know what I'm going to say it. But actual things that are going to help us or run a sale. I have 1,000 items. It takes me forever to go through and run a sale, right? And if they don't want to, that's fine. But I think they are kind of being wishy-washy. And hopefully, as they're evolving, they'll kind of decide. Because I think ThreadUp got rid of a lot of the resellers because they reformulated, and the resellers were mad about it. But they're like, this is our business. This is what we want to do. We don't want to appeal to resellers. And I think Poshmark is kind of trying to play in all the fields. And it's just not making for a good business strategy because you can't make everyone happy, right?
No. And I thought it was interesting that, seller services, and then he didn't mention analytics, but that's just me.
Right. I was right there with you.
Well, the first one I want to dive into is back to that first strategy. So growing the marketplace by growing the overall community of users. And I think this is where, we kind of talk about that casual seller. So they spent $25.5 million in marketing, which was a decrease of 24.8% from the prior year. So right now they're spending 39.6% of net revenue, down from 66.8% in marketing spend. And this does not include all of the social media posts that sellers do, all the Instagram posts
for free.
For free, Posh packages, check out my listings. It doesn't include that. And he wants to continue to spend in the low 40% range going forward. And I just don't see how this is sustainable to spend those types of marketing dollars. The other thing he said that was extremely...
I want to touch on this a little bit too, because I mentioned this in some of my other videos. My Poshmark sales have like tanked. And so I'm trying to like grasp at like what's happening here. eBay is growing. So it's not my stuff. It's not the economy. It's not whatever. And I think some of it has to do, before the IPO, they were pushing the marketing. They were, what was it, like 66% or something?
Yeah.
Drop that in half, it's going to come out in our sales, right? Like they're not pushing Poshmark as much. They're not marketing outside. They're not. So I wanted to know that as well as something that I'm noticing in the decrease in Poshmark spending money on marketing as opposed to like this time last year, right?
That, and I also feel that they push all the marketing towards new sellers. If you notice, all of the commercials are all about how easy it is to sell. Well, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? You need a buyer in order to make money for a seller, and you need a seller in order to make money for Poshmark. So to me, it feels like they're not getting the whole picture in the marketing. It's very, very seller focused and not buyer focused. And what are the great things you can find there, and really recruiting people to actually shop and purchase on the app. It's all about selling. And then
but they're sell heavy too. And I don't know if we talked about it, or maybe in their IPO, I think I read they have more sellers than they have
yeah,
buyers.
yes,
Like,
yes, a million more. Yes.
yes, it's a lot, which is
Yeah.
another reason that I'm noticing sales going down, because you're having more people selling and more casual sellers that are like, okay, cool, I'll take $5 for this. It's not in my closet anymore, right? And I want to tea time out real quick. We are not bashing Poshmark by any means. It's just looking at what is happening and helping you guys make the decision on. You can still make money on Poshmark. You can still put this into your business plan, but just be aware of what's going on, in the economy and on these different platforms as you guys figure out what you want to do with your hobby and business. So this is not, I don't want it to sound like a bash session. We are just, putting forth the things that we have seen.
Yeah,
Kristinia.
no, I totally agree. And I think there's just a lot of options right now, and it's choosing what the best option is for you. So because of my relocation, I have taken a step back from reselling, and it's really changed my perspective. I think the biggest one has been the time spent, because of the social aspect of Poshmark. You're expected to share, to follow, to do these things. And my husband used to say to me, "You're making $2 an hour with all the time you're spending on there." And oh, no. And well, then I really started, once I took a step back and saw how much my screen time went down and everything else. It's like, yeah, maybe he's kind of right. And then you add on top of that, their 20% fee is really the highest, of any of the resale apps and websites. Even eBay, I think eBay averages out to around 13%. You really have to think about, is this the best use of my time, and is this the place for me to make the most money?
Yeah. And I think to that point, and then we'll get back into some of these things from the earnings call. I think to that point too, Poshmark is great because you can go on, you can share your closet, you're going to get sales. And then next week when you're busy, you don't have to. The listing, it's very good, I think, for a hobbyist. It can get to where you are on there hours and hours and hours to make those sales. But I've moved towards eBay, right? But I put commitment into eBay. You cannot be that wishy-washy on eBay like you were on Poshmark. So Poshmark could be the better platform for you, because like if you cancel an order on eBay, you're like doomed. Poshmark is a little bit more flexible, right? And that's where you have to make the decisions, and why I have educated people come on and share with us to help you guys decide what is best for you.
Yeah, so a couple other things, just the Manish comments, that I thought were very interesting. On the marketing spend, he said there is a 2-year payback. So they finally said what the payback period was. Seems really long to me on Poshmark. I mean, they didn't give any retention stats. So do buyers even hang around for 2 years? Neither here nor there. But then the other thing he said that I thought was really kind of almost a damaging comment was, he said the older cohorts are the most loyal. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but you just mentioned that the future of resale is really with the younger generations, with like Gen Z, yet Poshmark's most loyal base is what he called an older cohort. So it makes you wonder if their growth that they're predicting is really there, or are they missing the mark on the target market, which is millennials and Gen Z, which are really driving resale.
Yeah, I get it. It's like they can't decide, right? Like it feels like they're in the middle and can't decide. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think, well, we kind of skipped ahead. So any other thoughts?
We do. I'm going to tap into the question. We have a couple of people asking some questions. I'm just touching base. Hold on. Let's see. Sorry, now I'm going back.
Okay.
Veronica is saying the thing that bothers me with Posh is that there are so many little things that could easily be added and they don't. Instead, they add features nobody asked for and aren't really helpful, right? I mean, you can just show me how many people viewed my item. Or I think someone says further down a sale. Yes.
Yeah.
Versus saying they need to come up with a way to run a sale and drop the price on multiple items all at once or share your closet all at once. Yes, these are very easy ways to do things.
Save a search. I mean, they talk about all these things that they're, enhancing search, but you can't save a search. So to me, that would be the most basic one that you would do. I don't need Posh Picks for home, which it sounds like that's what they're moving into. They're adding more categories to their, curated Posh Picks. I'd rather just be able to save something that I'm looking for instead of having to type it in every single time I go shop.
Yes, yeah. And be able to get what I actually want instead of who shared. Like I get the sharing aspect,
Yeah.
but also like I don't want just what came in the most recent. Bob is saying, so if there is more sellers than buyers, wouldn't it make sense to turn Posh into a B2B sale? I don't know what a B2B is. Do you know what that is?
Business to business.
Oh, okay.
Right now, it's consumer to consumer, but business to consumer.
Okay. So who here would buy curated wholesale boxes? They have a wholesale portal. I've never done it. I don't know what it means. So I don't know if that would be.
I don't think it's really wholesale prices because you don't need to have a resale, a license in order to purchase from it. So it's wholesalers, but they sell. I don't think the pricing is as competitive as you could actually get if you had your wholesaler license.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's the questions we have. People are just, and feel free, you guys, as we are going through this, if you have specific questions or want us to touch on anything as well. Everyone's saying their wholesale sucks. It's terrible. Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to, I guess, to talk about on the retention piece is, we mentioned the casual sellers, and if you think about the shift in e-commerce since people have been home during the pandemic, they're wanting more and more things very quickly. So Amazon, Walmart, in heated battle of competing for the online shopper. Walmart's e-commerce is up 69%. They can't build warehouses fast enough because it's kind of that last mile. People want something the same day or the next day. So you're getting into the more into the casual reseller. You hear a lot of, well, you have 7 days to ship, and things of that nature. And when you're thinking about it and competing with retail, you need to have a really high level of customer service. And I don't feel that my recent experience on Poshmark that there really is that with the casual seller. And Poshmark really pushes new sellers. So I'd mentioned the Posh Picks. If you look through those, 70 picks or whatever you get, I think it's every day. The majority of them are sellers with like 400 followers, 500 followers. They're very new sellers. And so they really push all of these new sellers, but at the same time, those are the ones that have the least invested and the lower quality of customer service. And so I kind of feel personally that they're not doing themselves any favors with their retention. And so at what point are they tapped out? They've been around 10 years. I think about when I started in 15 to today, everybody knows Poshmark today. Very few people knew Poshmark in 2015 that I would talk to. You have to at some point up your retention and get people to be repeat buyers. And by not really having, they have a 20% threshold on offers, there's just certain things they're doing that aren't really driving that retention that I think they're going to have to refocus on here.
And the Amber Resale touches on this a lot about the amount, and I wonder if they kept this for the IPO to say they had so many users, but the amount of inactive postures, because what happens is you send out and these are people get on the app, they find something, they send out an offer, and then they never hear back. They're not going to go to Poshmark again to make a sale, or they do end up buying it, but then it takes 7 days to ship out, and then the item comes and it gets ruined because these people don't know how to. And I totally get casual sellers, but I'm with you. Like, is this actually helping Poshmark to focus? Maybe you have to go through a seller school or something. Like, these are our base standards. Maybe it doesn't have to be to the extent of eBay,
Right.
but you want people to keep coming back to the app. Ideally, us as sellers want people coming back to us. But if they come back to the app, then it filters down to us. And I'm with you. I don't think these casual sellers are going to get that to happen, because you're not getting, as the buyer, you're not getting that end of the customer service, right?
Yeah. Yes, completely agree. Okay.
We do have a question. Eveless. So they're asking, they only sell on eBay and have a warehouse and employees. So will there be pressure to reduce the 7-day shipping window? eBay with some same-day shipping has been impactful, helping to sellers' sales numbers. Because they're going in the mindset of we're competing with Amazon, ideally, where you get it the next day, and that's what people are wanting right now. They want to have it that same day or next day.
I think it's something they need to look at. The window is really long. I made 7 purchases since I moved. I'm in a new climate now, and it's been a mixed bag. I had 2 that didn't ship until after the reminder, which to me is too long. And then I had 2 that were not as described. One, they sent the wrong size, and shame on me, they didn't have a picture of the tag, so I couldn't verify it. I probably should have asked. You'd think you didn't need to verify it to size, but
Well, yes, right. But as someone buying online, as a buyer, you don't why are you going to want to have to do all of this when you could go to another site and not have to be
worry about it?
Yeah.
And another item had some damage that wasn't disclosed. Nothing I received out of the 7 items, only 2 were wrapped. A pair of shoes was wrapped well and in plastic bags. That was the best one. It was an established seller. And then 1 clothing item was in tissue with a thank you sticker. Everything else was just put into either a mailer or a box. No tissue, no bag, no anything. And I know a lot of people take a lot of pride in how they package their sales, and honestly, it's the exception. It's not if 5 out of 7 didn't have any packaging.
Yeah, and I think that's probably pretty normal, because everyone that we know that is priding themselves, they're resellers. Even if they're not full-time resellers, we know them because of social media. They are, on Instagram, social media, reselling pages and Facebook, and they're taking this to some kind of seriousness, not just someone who is selling their closet. And I think that's something that we always have to be mindful of too, is we get so honed in on the Poshmark community from a reseller's perspective, but we are probably very small out of everybody that's on Poshmark. I mean, to the extent of your small sample size, right? You did 7 sales and only 2 of them were packaged. Most sellers on Poshmark, I've sent out offers and you just never hear back. Because they put it on there, they forget, and Poshmark doesn't inactivate after so many months, or they're not doing it seriously. They come back in 2 weeks, and that's not. And I rarely buy on Poshmark because I want to be able to return my item. I don't return my item ever because I'm a reseller, and I'm well, I'll just resell it instead of returning it. But I want to have that option. And it's I know as a seller, it's nice to not have to deal with returns, but from a buyer's perspective, it is a big turnoff for me. I wonder how many other people, when you have 25 other reselling platforms out there, how many other people is it a turnoff for as well, right?
Yeah, agree. I think the no returns is, and the fit is always I've made many purchases on Poshmark that, if I wasn't reselling, what was I going to do? And so I think that's part of that retention. Is it's very difficult to retain a customer if they're not having a really great experience, the first time they buy.
Yes.
I think we touched on most everything. One other thing I wanted to talk about was kind of the international, and thoughts there, with them saying that that's really going to drive the most growth, but they're not offering any international shipping, at this time. How does that really align? If you think about eBay, they have 185 million active buyers worldwide, and you can ship worldwide on eBay. And Poshmark has 5 million buyers. As a reseller, you need to start thinking: is this, the reach is also something to keep in mind, especially when you think about that 20% fee being among the high. It is the highest, as far as I know, across the resale sites.
Yeah, and I wonder how I have a couple of friends who resell in Australia, and they're eBay resellers because Poshmark wasn't a thing, right? And they're like, I'm not getting on Poshmark. That sounds like a nightmare, right? And so maybe for casual sellers, but then you get into that casual sellers, and the bad service, and then if you throw international shipping into that, then they have to start learning international shipping. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do. They seem like very wish-washy, right? Like they just don't know. They can't pick a strategy. And then they're like, we're going to do this, but then we're doing this over here. That is completely different than what we said we were going to do over here. It seems very.
Yeah, I was probably among the few, my friends when they first expanded, and men's, kids, I didn't have a problem with that, but when they first expanded into home, I was just kind of thinking of my, more my business strategy hat. I felt that it lost that niche because once they went into home, they went into everything else, right? And it just didn't feel like it felt more like a mercari seems a little more yard saley. Poshmark started to feel that way, and I think one of the things that was so appealing to me about Poshmark at the beginning was it was very stylized. People take great pride in their photos. There's a lot of modeling, and it was really great merchandise, and they it was very fashion focused, which was what I liked, and I was looking for something that I could clean my closet out and not donate everything, make some money. And it was very appealing when it was there. And I think about 6 years in, it just doesn't feel the same anymore. And I think when I was spending more time trying to grow my sales, spending more time sharing, spending more time following, and then all of the accounts on the following, I had to stop that because it was VRB 686, and then the very next one down, VRB 687. These aren't real people, and it just became. I felt that it was a lot of time spent, and it wasn't value added time.
Yes.
So.
Well, and I think too, I mean, go back 6 years ago before it was large, and it could be more of a social media app where you were, it was stylized, and this was your curated closet, and your followers maybe meant something. I have like 2 zillion followers now. I don't like. There's so many of them. They're not like actually following me like they would be on Instagram or on YouTube, right? It's just I want to get more followers so I get more people seen, and after a certain extent, that's not really helpful anymore. Like it's not doing its purpose anymore, because it's just flooding your inbox. And most sellers do not shop that way, right? Like most buyers are, I need a new Patagonia jacket, women's size medium, right? They're not going through and scrolling. And I think too, tying back to what you were saying in the beginning with these retail companies that are coming out and doing, like I was looking for a Patagonia jacket. Can you tell what I was recently searching? And I was searching, and I searched in Google to see like where it was going to come. And Patagonia has a resale place. you can buy back from them. And I think they've had it for a couple of years, but it was the cheapest there, and it's coming from Patagonia. I know that it's going to be good customer service. I know they're going to wrap it in and so Poshmark is having to compete with those retailers as a casual seller. Like, why are people going to? It'll be interesting. I don't know if you have outlooks or kind of what you're thinking the future is going to hold based off of where we're at.
I mean, my gut tells me it's going to continue to grow, but I think that it's going to grow in a different way. I am someone who searches a lot of sites when I'm looking for something. I make purchases off of, ThredUp, Swap, whatever it may be. I've found that because the market is so saturated right now, the quality of the items has gone down. And I kind of feel like if it's not new with tags, I'm really not going to buy it off of Poshmark or ThredUp, for example. I would rather go thrifting and be able to touch and feel and see something, and judge its size, etc. But I think the industry as a whole is destined. It's good. It's strong. It's just, what is it going to look like on the other side of the pandemic when people get back to work? Will it get back to what we had seen in the past, where things are a little more curated, the items are a little bit better quality, because it's not everybody's at home and cleaning out their closets. Once we kind of get over that hump.
Yeah, and Sunny has a valid point too. I'm glad she brought this up because I think this will make a huge impact as well. I think that the new tax law that goes into effect next year will hurt Poshmark and just general resellers, casual sellers. The fact that anything over 500 sales a year will get a tax statement. So if you guys aren't aware, if you have over $500, if you're selling on a platform over $500 on any platform, they will be sending a 1099 to the IRS. Technically, you are still, so whether they send a 1099 or not, you are still supposed to be claiming this as an income. But once they start sending a 1099 to the IRS knows that you're making that money. And if you do not claim it, you're in big trouble. And so I think that has that will have an impact, because most people at $500, is that really worth you having to do a 1099 and file your taxes and figure out what to do? And like, how many casual sellers are just going to be like, I'm done. Like, it's worth my time.
It's also going to run into not even just casual sellers, but people trying to clean out things out of their home. I mean, you could sell some, baseball card collection you'd had since you were a kid, and if it's over, $500-600, you're getting a 1099 from eBay, from PayPal. So, it's something to think about, that it's always been there. They just haven't enforced it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. We did have Birdie is saying, I agree, Sarah Styles LLC. Now that I'm on Amazon FBA seller as well, I see the stringent requirements for customer service and packaging. I appreciate the quality this breeds as a customer. And I think it's interesting. And full disclosure, I sell what makes you happy. I'm not trying to tell you, I like to have these conversations to make you guys think about your time, and to spend it wisely and to look towards the future. If Poshmark is where it's at for you, have at it. Nothing wrong with it. But I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like all of the requirements that eBay has. The reason, and then Amazon as well, the reason that they have these requirements is to make it a good experience for the buyer so that they come back, right? And so whether they are buying from Kristinia, if they have a good experience from Kristinia, they're coming back to eBay as a whole. And eventually, hopefully, that will come back down to me. And so while it's hard if you're a seller, on Amazon or on eBay, knowing it, like, once I realized that was why they do it, and they make, it easier for you to search and make it just a better customer experience, that kind of makes sense. And I think Poshmark probably has a little bit, and maybe they won't. Maybe it'll just always be a casual seller, and that's kind of where they'll go with it. And you decide if that's the platform that you want to do, and maybe a couple extra $100 a month. I think if you guys have been watching my channel, I have been trying to figure out why, like, I don't know how people make full-time livings on Poshmark. I don't. I really recently, And I just I could not get over this hump. I don't.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I don't have those notes in here with me, so I don't know that I'll get the math right. But there was a post on Facebook of a reseller on Poshmark who got to the $100,000 mark, and the gross sales. Put a screenshot of that on there, and so of course you show me your seller stats. I'm gonna start doing the math, right? So. She'd been on 2 years, so pretty amazing to have done $50,000 a year in 2 years. Then I look and it was like 183,000 shares in the last 30 days. She had 1,000 active, a little over 1,000 active listings, and so that's like, okay, 6,000 shares a day, and 30 days is not business days, right? That's every day.
Yeah.
6,000 shares, so she's sharing her full closet, and we can argue whether she's really doing it or not, just for example's sake. 6 times a day, and I had 400 active items, and it used to take me a good half an hour to share because I hated it and get distracted and whatever. And so I used my half hour as the time and got that down to one share was however many seconds. And so to share your closet of 1,000 items 6 times a day, it was 7.625 hours a day. So when are you listing?
That's a full day, right? And right. And so technically, and we're not even going to get into this. I'm going to say this and then we're moving away from it. Technically, robots are not allowed, but you do the math. Like, just saying.
Right.
And you can't pay someone if you're paying someone 8 hours a day. Yeah. It's not sustainable. And then for casual, if they're getting casual, how are casual sellers doing this?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I can't compete with that. I don't have them. I didn't have the margins in order to, pay someone or to do something. And so, and there's that side of it. But then to me, okay, you're grossing 50,000 and spending all this time. What is that person's margin? And is this really, a full-time income? It seems to me it's 40 plus hours of work. Are you really getting the return back on what you're putting in?
And on that number, I've said this from the very beginning. I'm a numbers and analytics person. No shame in my game. If you guys watch my channel, you know that. And this is why, because your time is worth something. You have to figure out what it's worth. The stats that they give us, I think Poshmark is very smart. The stats that they give us, if you give one number of the amount of money that you've made the entire time that you're on Poshmark, that looks like a very impressive number. Even if you're only selling $100 a month, over the course of a year, that's $1,200, which looks kind of impressive, right? I would venture to say that there's a reason that that's the number they're giving us and not more nitty gritty, because then people would start realizing I am making 50 cents an hour. Is this really worth my time? Right. Well, we are getting to the end. So if people do have any questions before we get to the end, if there's anything, I know you took some time away from Poshmark, so I'm interested to kind of know what are you going to get back into reselling? Are you going to venture out other places? What's kind of where are you at?
So I don't know. Space is such a challenge. I downsized my home, so I no longer have a bedroom, an extra bedroom that was strictly my posh room. So right now, all of the inventory that I didn't purge is in bins, either at a storage unit or out here in the garage. And I don't really have a good place to photograph yet. So I keep extending that closet vacation. I will see. I know I'll get back into it in some form, and it may be Poshmark. I don't know. I have. I said I moved to a different climate. I'm down in Southwest Florida now. It's endless summer. I came from a place with seasons. I've got lots of jackets. I don't want.
But I found when I lived in Florida for a very short period, but I found I got rid of all my winter stuff and I had to go buy new stuff because they keep the AC on blast. So you go inside and you need sweaters because you're like, why is it so cold in here?
But I don't think I need as many as I have. So yeah, I mean, I don't really wear heels anymore. My lifestyle's changed, and I don't go into an office more than once or twice a week anymore. not just from the pandemic, but I don't think I will be going forward. I mean, it seems that remote work is kind of here to stay,
Mhm.
and I'm supposed to be out in the field, so I've got things I don't want to necessarily give away. So I do know that I'll be reselling. I actually honestly think I might give eBay a try. I've got some things, you know, hard goods or other things that I might try to mix in there. And I was always so particular about my closet and so particular about the aesthetic, and making sure that the things I sold, it was my boutique, right? I was the buyer, I was the merchandiser. It had to fit in this certain thing, and I'm kind of in the mindset of I just need to let things go, and so I may try something new.
Yeah, I'll be excited to see where you take it. Thank you so much for joining. If you guys do not follow Kristinia, she is on Instagram, does it kind of, taking a little bit of a hiatus and not posting a ton on there. But if you do have further questions for her, she is definitely a wealth of knowledge and definitely very supportive of the community. As we mentioned in the beginning, this is Kristinia's opinion. It is very data research intensive. She's a finance executive, so she's not just spewing things out at us. She is reading the IPO, she's looking at the earnings calls. And I greatly appreciate you putting all of that time into this and sharing that with me and then also my channel as well. So if you guys do want to share some of this stuff or even just talk a little bit more with her, her link to her Instagram is down below as well. And this is recorded. So if you guys have further questions, if you're watching this in the recording, you can leave the comments down below. If I can answer, I will. If not, I will make sure that Kristinia I will notify her of it as well and answer either on her behalf or send it over here. So this was amazing. We try and do this quarterly. Last year, the pandemic, Kristinia was moving. But hopefully I can have you back in a couple months and we'll kind of touch base on this is very Poshmark heavy. In the past, we've kind of done, economics and trends and stuff, but it kind of just depends on what's going on. So keep an eye out in the next couple months. I should have Kristinia back to kind of talk a little bit more in depth about economic trends from her perspective. It's such a wealth of knowledge having you here. If there's anything that you'd like to share before we sign off.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I am grateful for all that Poshmark brought me. I mean, it brought us together, right? It's a very personal, I think a lot of people take comments about Poshmark personally because of that social aspect. And, really it's all about evaluating your business. And I look at their strategies and what they're doing. And I don't know if it aligns with what I want to do going forward and where I want to be. I have a lot of fun on like Depop. It's not necessarily my age group, but it's fun, and I kind of feel like for me personally, the fun is not in Poshmark anymore, and so could my opinion be skewed by that? Yes, but I'm just offering these are the things I'm thinking about, and you all make your own decisions based on how they align for you.
Yeah. And I think that is very well put. And I would second that as well. At the end of the day, do what works for you. And if it's Poshmark, if it's Depop, if it's Kidizen, I could go on. There's like 20 or 30 different platforms. What I'm doing is not necessarily what's going to work for you. Why I dedicate my channel to teaching you how to look at your numbers and make those decisions for yourself. My strategies work for me. I want to help you figure out what works for you, and why I love to have wonderful guests like this on to kind of help widen our perspective and, I don't know, put some little bugs in your ear of things to think about that maybe you hadn't thought about in the past. So on that note, I am headed off to start my spring break with my husband. Yeah, we are up in the mountains enjoying it. So I will be MIA most of the week, here or there if you are touching base. Nice thing about YouTube is you can schedule videos. So there will be videos this week, but I will be having some fun with my family. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night. And again, Kristinia, thank you so much for all of the time that you put into this and joining me tonight.
Thank you. Bye.